Hi everyone, the Chattering Magpie here. Today we're diving into the world of fatherhood as depicted in Ascendance of a Bookworm. This light novel is full of rich characters, some good and some very bad, but they're all fascinating. Through Mind's journey, we get a glimpse of complex family dynamics shaped by political intrigues and societal customs. Today we're going to be focusing on the relationships between parents and children. It's crucial to recognize and honor those who excel in these roles. So, a bunch of bookworms in my server and I compiled a list of almost all the fathers, grandfathers, mentors, and other father figures in the story. Because fatherhood isn't just about being a biological parent, there is so much more to being a father. So, I want to include all father figures, regardless of their style or approach. We'll discuss each of them and award them a gift fitting their parental contributions. Joining me today in celebrating the diverse spectrum of fatherhood is Nick, who is not just a fellow fan and a Zend tier supporter, but also happens to be a dad.
I'm a father myself, and so I have a 7-year-old daughter, and I thoroughly love when she shows, consideration for the holiday and toward any assistance and care and guidance I give her and love for that. So it's always nice to be appreciated.
I hate to start with the bad, since we started off like it's a wonderful thing to do to observe Father's Day, but let's just get the nasty flavors out of the way. What do you think?
No, yeah, definitely. Let's get the bad taste out of our mouth early.
The bad we have, since we're going by rank, none other than Ewigeliebe, however you say it.
So Ewigeliebe is one of the Eternal Five gods, and he is referred to in the anime and the light novel as a very jealous god with his love. The god of chaos whispered in his ear and turned his love into a jealous and possessive one. And because of that, he doesn't like sharing the love of his wife with his children, and actively, attempts to hurt them because of it.
That is the reason why we have the entire magical system of Jürgenschmidt, which is an entire country just to protect people born with magic from Ewigeliebe, who would kill them if he finds them.
So he kind of reminds me of Cronus of the Greek pantheon, where Cronus was actively eating all of his children because he thought they were going to usurp him, until his wife fed him a stone instead of one of his children, and that one became Zeus, and the Olympians rose up against him. And so there's an old statue of the god Saturn, which is also Cronus, where he's like actively eating a child. That's it. He's getting a statue of someone eating their own children.
We have some terrible fathers here and father figures. Yeah, it's kind of hard to top that. Grausam, also known as Viscount Dahldolf, a devoted fanatic follower of Georgine.
Well, he has at least 2 kids, maybe more. His children are only important so much as they raise Georgine's name. Like, their accomplishments have to go to her. Their life has to go to her. If they aren't useful to her, they might as well not exist. So his children are only important to him in so much as they're important to Lady Georgine.
He did have 3 kids. 2 of them were carried off by the purge. He managed to save himself, but not his kids during the purge. So I'm like, Grausam, really? But that was not the end of it, because later on we had Matthias and Grausam confront each other during the battle for Gerlach. And when he saw his son, what tender words did he have to say to him upon his reunion? Do you remember?
Basically, how could you serve a commoner? You deserve to die, basically.
Yes. And he also, if I recall correctly, he also said, how could the worst of my sons be the one to have survived? Or something like that.
I forgot about that.
Dude.
So brutal.
What should we give Grausam for a Father's Day present?
The only good gift for him is to remove his other arm and then swiftly execute him.
Beautiful. Makes him symmetric. I love it. Next on the list is someone you might not recognize by name. This is Giebe Wiltord, who was Grausam's bestie, and they were both co-conspirators with Georgine. He had 3 sons, Freud, Lawrence, and Bertram. Sidonius was like, okay, well, Freud is going to get married. He married one of the girls from Arensbach. Remember, we had Bettina and Aurelia. So Freud married Bettina, and they all just like, they were just one happy family of traitors. But not content with that, he was like, yeah, I'm going to get my son a good mistress, which he planned to share with his son. Terrible stuff. Psycho behavior, off with your head.
The only positive I can say to it is that at least his son Lawrence turned out to be such a fine young man, and who really cared for his younger brother.
That is true.
But that is literally the only thing, you can say in good conscience about him and his family.
I ended up choosing Sidonius' gift for Father's Day, and yes, it's crass, bloody, and brutish, but I think this man deserves it. Grecia's baptismal father.
So he took in his sister
Mm-hmm.
while she was pregnant with Gretia to basically be a house servant. And when Gretia was measured, she had the mana of a med noble, so they decided to adopt her into the family to be a political tool for marriages later, and that her brother's baptismal mother and her biological mother, none of them were very kind to her. They all treated her as an unwanted person, basically.
Our poor Grecia, the first time we met her, she was a nervous wreck. We could attribute that to shyness. But when she gave her name to Rosamine, everybody that gave their names to Rosamine, they all grimaced and groaned, but not Grecia. She just bore it quietly.
I think she was used to abuse and not being allowed to say anything about it.
Not content with never showing her even a trace of warmth or affection, when she got mana sensing, parents usually gather all kinds of people from the family, acquaintances, so that they can find a spouse. However, the kind of people that her baptismal father gathered for her, they weren't there for the sake of having a young, beautiful wife. They were there for the sake of purchasing a mistress. And it is because of Grecia's baptismal father that Grecia got swept up and involved with Sidonius, who, together with his son, were absolutely awful human beings.
I think a copy of Cinderella would be nice. It's just a tale of how, the stepdaughter is treated very poorly by her family and is able to rise up above them, and hopefully they can take some lessons from that and just not being horrible people.
Exactly. With that, we go to Kashik.
He's Philine's father.
He was an awful father to Philine and Conrad, so much so that his name, Kashiku in Japanese, is an anagram for shikaku, which means failure or unfit for duty in Japanese.
He's absent and spineless. He has 2 children from a previous marriage that he does, to some degree, care for, but once his new wife starts to abuse them, he abdicates all responsibility and sees her as a head of the household, basically.
People are human and stuff. People make mistakes. Things happen. But in the bookworm world, if you don't plan for a child, that child is probably going to not make it. These children need special magic tools with which to survive. Otherwise, they're going to be doomed to a slow and painful death. So his decision to have a child and then to prioritize the child because he had supposedly more mana, it is terrible to see. It is terrible also that when Philine is being abused by Jonsara with aggression and all kinds of things, he turns the other way.
While Philine will take control of the estate at some point, she has cut all ties with her father and stepmother.
Mm-hmm. Kashik is devastated because he loses both the children he had with his first wife, but probably his third child too, since Rosamine bought the magic tool that had belonged to Philine's mother and that they had stolen from Conrad, and later was said that it would be difficult for them to acquire another magic tool, even though they were given the money, just because of circumstances. So, Kashik...
He needs a spine, so let's gift him one of those. And, probably a nice slap from Bonifatius.
Yes. All right, so next, Surprisingly enough, and I don't know if you would agree with the placing here, but do you believe Justus should be in the bad?
He's the bad. So Justus divorced his wife and disowned his child basically to follow Ferdinand. Now the details of that are kind of mysterious, but what I think is really telling is that even once Veronica was gone and Ferdinand was returned to noble society, he didn't attempt to maintain a relationship with his child in any way. So he, to me, is a deadbeat of all deadbeats.
So we all love Justus, but when it comes to a father, that's where we're like, no, Justus, no. You know what? What he deserves?
Yeah, I got nothing.
I got something.
All right, let's hear it.
He needs Marie Kondo to go and visit his house and to clean up his room against his will.
Is she the lady who is like, does this bring joy?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So if we bring Marie Kondo to his rooms when he's away and have him return to find them all sparkly, clean.
Obviously, he would hate that.
That's the point.
And yeah, I'm okay with that. Like you said, I love him as a character.
Mm-hmm.
He's great, but wow, is he a bad dad?
Let's go to the next one on the list. It would be Brother Egmont.
He is technically a father.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're new to the story, basically Egmont is a blue priest in the temple, and he takes female retainers and then, engages with them. And when they get pregnant, he casts them off.
Mm-hmm.
And in the old days, they would just kill pregnant mothers because they couldn't be expected to care for them. Under Rosemine's care of the temple, she gets taken to the cellar, where the pre-baptismal children are, to give birth and raise her child there. He's just using women, and then when they get pregnant, he casts them off.
Egmont got his just desserts. That's a happy end to this story.
Well, he gets his hand cut off because he's wearing a ring that's evidence. He gets executed at some point, I'm assuming.
A lot of hands are flying around here.
Yeah, it's like a George Lucas film, just hands getting lopped off.
What should we give Egmont for Father's Day gift?
He's getting the same as Grausam. He's getting the other hand taken.
Symmetry for the win. Let's do this. Everybody bring out your axes.
That way he can't abuse a bookworm ever again either.
Yeah. The following is a special category for parental figures whose actions led to some huge repercussions. Gieselfried. He fathered several children, but one of them was Detland.
His big problem was letting Georgine have too much say. To have so little, for a greater duchy, to have so little control of your own house, and so bad at information gathering, to allow Georgine to take center stage and also let her raise her children the way she did. Wow. Just, you have to have been just so involved in work or something to not be noticing what's going on around you. His children, or his surviving child, is the most worthless individual in the in Ewigeliebe, and he's not much better.
Yeah. So here's the thing. There are fathers who neglect their family entirely because they have so much responsibility at work. Like, you have an Aub of a greater duchy, a duchy that is really going through some really serious things, but he's doing neither of his jobs right, dude. Like, his professional life, he did not do good. Like, he left Arnsbach in tatters, and Ferdinand had to come in and clean it all up. His family life in tatters. Yet all these other people that could have, stepped up, and still Arnsbach was the way it was. So that's my trouble with him. You can't be a failure in both spheres, my dude. If you're gonna fail at being a father, at least, please, do your job as an Aub. I don't even know what to give this guy.
A game of chessboard so he can start thinking strategically? I don't know.
Maybe a training session, a very harsh training session with Ferdinand. Like, let's have him be a tiny Gieselfried and have Ferdinand just sit him down, if necessary, tie him down like he did with Wilfrid, and have him just threaten him to do his job for once and to freeze his heart and cast him in the Valley of Despair. Let him have like a good session with Ferdinand. I think it'll do him a world of good.
Yeah, it's too bad he didn't live long enough for Ferdinand to work under him for at least a little while.
Adelbert, oh boy howdy. Let's talk about Adelbert.
So Adelbert is the biological father of Georgine, Constance, and Sylvester. And then he's brought Ferdinand in the household. For the most part, Sylvester got along with 3 of them. Georgine always hated Sylvester, didn't treat Constance very nicely, and I think she was gone by the time Ferdinand showed up. The reason we list him as someone who should have done better is because of how he let his wife Veronica control the household in such a negative manner. The competition amongst the kids, how she was constantly trying to kill Ferdinand and made Georgine's life so hard, thus changing her personality and everything. Adelbert's big failing is basically allowing the tyranny of Veronica.
The one thing that probably saves him from being an altogether lousy father is that he took Ferdinand from the Adelgisa villa.
He was a forward thinker in that the reason he brought Ferdinand into the house is because of the goddess of time, saying that it would benefit his house and his duchy.
The way Ferdinand learned how to demonstrate affection was his father would sit him down. He would give him like words of, "I'm proud of you, you have done very well."
He referred to Ferdinand as his pride and joy.
Yes, he did. I know it's hollow praise. Now that I'm saying all this, it sounds like, is this really the best he could do? But yes, apparently it is the best we could do. But as little as it may be, it was still enough for Ferdinand to cling on to. And we also have to consider the fact that Adelbert was never a strong person. Not just his character, but he was weak also physically. So within those constraints, that's what we get. Somebody who just was not able to take the firm leadership that his duchy and his family needed. What about a gift for him, Nick? What should we give him?
A mug that said "okayest grandpa" or something like that.
Works for us. We have a special category set aside for the next individual, because he was doing some stupid things, but otherwise seems to be decent. Karin's father is just like, dude, buddy, what in the world were you thinking?
So Karin's a merchant from Klassenberg who comes to trade in Ehrenfest, and her father just leaves her behind, probably with the intent of her building relations with Benno, but just straight up leaves her behind, and she's like, oh, I'll follow after him. But he changes his route so that she can't follow him in a safe manner. So he's putting a lot of trust on a city he's only ever been to once to take care of his daughter.
You don't do that, man. You don't do that. There are consequences because of what this merchant did. The merchant slots for Klassenberg are reduced the next year. Some people say that he might have been executed. I don't know. But this man deserves at least a good smack in the head.
A firm scolding or a Harrison slap sounds pretty good.
Yes, let's do it. And with Bonifatius involved, please. The next category is they're doing their best. They're kind of crappy parents, but we give them a pass because we either like them, we sympathize with them, or they just have a really good excuse. Trauerqual, to some degree, he elicits sympathy. His saving grace is that he is trying, and we really do see how much he's being stretched thin. So, what should we give him for Father's Day gift?
He needs a vacation. A nice vacation. He's doing his best. He chastises his children when they need chastising. But he's just put too much effort to his work and not enough time to his family, unfortunately, because of circumstances.
Unfortunately, yep. The next person on the list is Aub Dunkelfelger.
I don't know a ton of his parenting style, but I think, honestly, he's probably a pretty decent father, given that his kids are, for the most part, pretty well balanced. His son is prideful, but is also an artist, And Hannelore is kind of meek, but has her own interests and her own strengths. And so I feel that he's, for a noble, a pretty decent father.
One of the things that is important to notice in this family dynamic is a lot of the parenting is done by Sigiswald. While he's not being very active in the parenting, on the whole, this is for a noble family and an Aub family too. They seem to be an okay family, and I respect that. So he is doing his best. He is doing what he needs to do to make sure that the kids come out okay, and that is being a co-parent when he can, or if not, at least supporting Sigiswald in the rearing up of the kids. Any gift for Aub Dunkelfelger this Father's Day?
I guess so, like the typical kid, like coupon book or macaroni art. Yeah, his son made the macaroni art because he's the artist, and Hannelore made a coupon book to like get out of a scolding from his wife on occasion.
The community brought up that he should be given
and advanced copies of a Ditter story.
Yes,
I think is what someone said.
Advanced copies of the Ditter story that Roderick wrote. So it depends how generous you want to be. Speaking of fun and Aubs, I guess. This is the fellow who wants to be the fun dad. We have Aub Ehrenfest, our very own Sylvester, whom I have termed as the himbo who tries. Let's talk about his parenting.
My overall opinion as him is, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. You know, like,
yes.
he cares about his children immensely. You know, he cares for his wife, he cares for his children, he cares about their future. But both he and Florencia don't take as much of an active role in their education as they should. You know, he thinks his kids are just going to be like him. You know, they'll get the knowledge they need when they need it. It's no big deal. They'll grow up to be fine. You know, and Florencia leaves too much up to the retainers with some oversight, but not nearly enough. And while they immensely love and care for their children, they're just not as active in their education as they should be.
Yes. So, and this is particularly telling in Wilfried. Now we have Melchior and Charlotte. They're sweet kids. They are, but they were properly brought up, I think, by Florencia. Florencia had a very had a strong influence.
Much bigger hand in there.
Yes, there you go. Thank you. Had a much bigger hand in bringing them up. So in any case, the credit for these kids turning out all right goes to Florencia. But this is not a Mother's Day video. This is a Father's Day video. So again, his efforts, they're just And then the one time where he was really needed where it was really necessary for him to put his foot down for the sake of his own son, he let Veronica take Wilfried, separating him from the love and care of his own mother. Those few years were just so crucial.
It's actually really sad because he's such a forward thinker, but he's trapped in the mindset of how nobles should be raised and lets his children, you know, suffer by letting their retainers shape them rather than by letting the household shape them.
Oh, Sylvester, what are we going to give you for Father's Day?
So Red Tempest again said he should get a plushie of Florencia with words of admonishments. As a fun gift, I would just give him any new game that Rosemine came up with, because he really loved all the new stuff she came up with.
It would be lovely to see him play against Ferdinand and be defeated each and every time, because Ferdinand will not hold back.
Definitely true.
Viscount Dahldolf. This is Shikikoza's father. We see other fathers, just Veronica hoisted a wife upon them and this wife totally destroyed the peace in their home. No, this wasn't the case. He literally was already Veronican, already had given his name to Veronica. So, like, dude, what gives? Like, what happened here?
Okay, because I know, like, he didn't seem as outwardly malicious toward the other factions as his wife did.
Now, he had a son, Jeremiah, with his first wife. With his second wife, Gloria, he had Shikikoza. Here was the thing. They were like, okay, what do we do with Shikikoza? He has very low mana. It was either make Shikikoza a servant of the house or send him to the temple. And they ended up sending him off to the temple. and then bringing him back when the mana shortage happened after the Civil War. He tried his best to give Shikikoza a second chance, so props to him for not abandoning his son altogether, but he could have done better by not giving in to Gloria and maybe listening to his son Jeremiah, who told him, Dad, just lock that crazy woman up, otherwise she's gonna mess us all up. He did his best. He did cooperate to save his remaining son when the whole Bible fiasco happened. So that's why he's still in the doing the best category. The entire house has not gone down in ruins.
His real crime here is not being a better husband. He didn't pay attention to the machinations of his wife. He tried to abide by the agreement with the Aub of distancing himself from Rosemine and trying not to interact with her at all. So he tried to abide by that. It was his wife that broke that agreement, and then he did his best to try to save his son, while if he had to take punishment he would. And so not great, but really his big problem was having more trust in his household than he should have.
I don't know about you, but I kind of feel like giving him his name back. Just going into Veronica's hidden room and plucking out his namestone and just, here, dude, take it back. Go and sin no more. Now, there are characters in Bookworm whom we know are fathers, but we don't know anything about their parenting. So, it's hard to say one way or another whether they're good or bad. We have Sigiswald, who gets a passing mention as he fathered a kid, I guess, when he shouldn't have. And he turned around and criticized Anastasius for having a kid also.
It baffles me. You know, he lets his wife basically set the tone for when they're going to have a kid. Like, she plotted that timing. Which, fine, whatever. My big problem is, how dare you get mad at Anastasius for having a kid, you know, right after getting married. How long have you been married to your second wife? You could have had a kid ages ago. Instead of upsetting your first wife's timing coming into the household by having a kid then, you could have had your kid a year, 2 years ago.
Yep.
Right? Now, it ends up being for the better. You know?
Yes.
But, like, how dare you, basically, just like try to chastise another father for choosing when to have their kid when you could have had your kid earlier.
Every father in this video is getting a gift. What do you think about a gift for him? Or what did the community say for him?
The community had nothing for him. So let's see. He'll get a card from his now not first wife saying Happy Father's Day, I guess.
Oh, yes. Can we have that be accompanied with a broom and a dustpan? Can we do that?
Yeah, it works for me.
I also put in this list Anastasius, though I don't know if he belongs in they're doing their best, I guess, or in good dad. What do you think?
I don't know enough about him as a father to justify one way or the other. I'm sure he cares, I'm sure he loves his family, but we don't see enough of him as a father.
The only thing that would put him above Sigiswald here is that when it came to defending the Royal Academy, the impetus for going, he was the only one of the royals who went in and fought the enemies for the sake of his wife and child.
Yeah, he was sort of threatened into it, and he was also the only royal summoned. It was an explicit threat from Ferdinand, who was like, hey, if you don't come, what's going to happen to your family?
You're right. His weakness was so exploitable. It was part of the plan already. It was a given that he would act when you say the magic words, he'll do the things. You're right. So he goes into the meh category. Didn't we come up with a gift for Anastasius?
Yes. Yeah, Red Tempest again said headache medicine.
Ooh.
But I think he specifically said like gremlin headache medicine, but you know, hopefully he doesn't have to deal with her too much longer. So just headache medicine. And, let's give him some blue robes.
Oh, no. Ouch. Nick.
Well, no, I mean, like, he's going to need them.
I know. Next is a special category for a very special individual. He's a grandpa, I guess. Emeritus Giebe Leisegang. He's a grandpa, I guess. What can we say about this grandpa?
I mean, he's a grandpa of grandpas. He's got so many grandkids. Dude's super old. My only problem with him, and I know it's because of politics, but that he cares so much more about one of his grandchildren than all the rest of them combined.
Oh,
You know, like, that's troubling. I see why, you know, because she's, in his mind, the princess of Leisegang and the potential, you know, salvation for his clan. But at the same time, like, all of her retainers are Leisegangs too. Why don't you care about them?
Right. And the irony of this is that she's not like, she's not even his granddaughter.
I know, poor. Well, you know what he reminds me of is actually, like, when you have a dog that gets over like 12 years old, they start getting real selective with their hearing.
Oh.
You know, but also, like, you give it to them because they're that old, and it doesn't matter, and, you know, it doesn't really matter anymore. You know, like, that's what he kind of reminds me of, is like an old kind of crotchety dog that you still love. You know, they're definitely a member of the household, and you care for them, but you know, you live with their foibles at this point because they're of an advanced age, and you're just okay with it. But as a gift, you know what I'd get him? A cat.
A cat?
Yeah, just something to sit on his lap as he looks at the fire, and, you know, because my grandma always hated cats, but once we got one in the house, she was never separated from it. It was always in her lap.
Oh,
you know?
That's so sweet.
And so that's what I feel he could use, something to calm himself down, to scratch behind the ears, and, you know, or maybe a declawed shoe mill, whatever. Or either declawed shoe mill or a cat, just to sit on his lap and as he tempers his revenge plots.
Now we move on to doting grandpas. We start with the former Aub Klassenberg, Eglintine's grandfather.
But yeah, so he's the one who had his daughter married to the third prince. And then when the whole family was massacred, Eglantine was the only one to escape. He adopted her into his clan and raised her and wanted her to marry one of the princes so that she could retain her previous status and bring glory to Klassenberg while we're at it. Why not?
Why not, right? It's a good little perk. As far as grandparents go, very doting, I suppose. You would think that Eglantine would be overjoyed at her grandfather, you know, strong-arming the royals into making her royal again. But unfortunately, Eglantine does not appreciate all these things that her grandfather is doing to return her to her royal status.
I think he's a doting grandfather, but it's colder than, say, like a Gustav, right? It's more calculating than Gustav. Like, while Gustav dotes on Frida and is making sure that she's in the best position possible to grow and progress in their society, Klassenberg is still sort of doing the same thing. He's putting Eglantine in what he thinks is the best position possible for her to maintain her status. And he thinks that's good for her in the long run, but it's also just mostly good for Klassenberg.
Yes, I mean, if our girl was to the point of desperation where she wanted to enter the temple, you know, there's some communication break right there. Either she did not feel like she could trust her grandfather, or maybe he was not listening. Either way, you are right. I am sure he was like, no, my granddaughter deserves the best. My granddaughter deserves to have her status returned to her. So there were the best of intentions there. But it feels a little different because of the coldness of a noble society. What should we give him as a Father's Day gift? Something representative of Klassenberg with the royal family.
A brooch or something with a coat of arms, whatever the animal that represents Klassenberg is, and maybe whichever animal represents the sovereignty. So you kind of have like those old school coat of arms where you have the rampant animals on the sides.
Yep.
Something like that.
Something really fancy.
Yeah, very.
We really do need to talk about Bonifatius. This could not...
Favorite.
Yeah. Bonifatius, favorite all around.
He clearly has his preferences of who he loves more, but he does love all of his grandkids, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when you point it out to him. So, like, obviously he loves Rosemine. He wants to be around Rosemine all the time. Like, when she gave him that heart-folded letter, it basically broke him with how cute it was. Mm-hmm. Even though he's a big, strong man, big, strong warrior, has never encountered anything like that before. It threw him off so hard that she thought she did something wrong, but it was really just him being like, this is the greatest thing I've ever gotten from any of my grandkids before. Mm-hmm. But what always sticks in my head is the one time he wants to throw her, and then Cornelius is like, but I'm your grandson too. He's like, yes, you are. And so he launches Cornelius, like up in the air like he's nothing. Like sometimes you have to point out that he has other grandkids, but he does. He loves them all, and he wants them to do well and do what's best for the duchy and for themselves. Mm-hmm. He doesn't always recognize that sometimes they are doing what's best for the duchy and themselves. Like when Rosemine's in the temple, that it's good for the duchy, it's good for her mindset and her comfort. You know, he sees the old noble mindset of that you want to get him away from the temple as quickly as possible, but he's the first one to let her know if things are not playing out the way she thinks they are for her growth. And so he's a fantastic grandfather.
He very firmly, but not unkindly, tells her, like, this is what you could be doing. These are the repercussions. You need to understand what's this all about. He's very firm. And in all of this, you know, he's in the middle of ridiculous exploits of daring do. He's not part of the brute squad. He is a brute squad of himself. He's just like a pillar of strength all around for everybody. All the enemies, when they hear Bonifatius is around, they all tremble. Because that's who he is. Bonifatius is a protector. So in the same way, he shows his devotion and his care for them by training them as hard as he can. No mercy, because in his mind, he's doing the best thing he can do for them, preparing them for the perils of the world.
He stepped in to try to train Wilfrid even at the archducal tasks. Mm-hmm. Even though he has a clear disdain for Wilfrid, he still stepped in and give him a second chance. Can't say much more than, of all the grandfathers we have, he is best granddad.
He is. We have no idea what he loves, what he enjoys the most, but we have to try, Nick. What can we give Bonifatius for Father's Day?
A Rosemine figurine or stuffy, one of those magic tools that you can record voices with, and then have just Rosemine give encouraging words to him. He would definitely take that.
And then, to round out the last of our doting grandfathers, we have Gustav, which you guys will know as the Guildmaster and Frida's grandfather.
So we mentioned him a few times when we were talking about the difference between him and Aub Klassenberg. Being Frida's grandfather and Frida having the devouring, he dotes on her, but also trains her so that she can have a dream and be self-sufficient in that dream later on in life. And so he sets her up with a noble to be a concubine, but he finds the most mild-mannered noble from a house that doesn't have too much power so that she can't be taken advantage of in a really harsh way. And he has created a future for her that she can continue to live and being an investment for the entire family moving forward, but in a way that she wants to be.
Yes. We did get a passing mention of her parents in the light novel. They just dropped in and said hi, but consistently we see that the person who really doted on Frida, who mobilized all the merchants in Ehrenfest to find where the hairpin came from, and then who paid like a huge amount of money for hairpins for Frida, it was Grandpa. And also, we have to remember that Frida had the devouring as well. She said, my grandfather used up every single connection he had to find tools for her to use that would help her extend her life. So, major props to Gustav for this.
He's a very awkward man. Especially with his dealings with Benno. He tries to mentor and take care of Benno, but like in the worst, most awkward way possible, so that he just breeds contempt. And Frida, to some degree, has a little bit of that awkwardness, too, because of how blunt she is with, like, Rose mine, or mine at the time. But that awkwardness hides a good-naturedness that they, you know, are trying to elevate those around them and put them in a good position. Like, it was made a point, I think, in volume 3, that if the guildmaster had really wanted to, he could have pressed the issue and forced Rosemine into his family. But he didn't, because I think that would go against his way that he wishes to deal with people.
Benno did say, oh, he just thought that you weren't worth taking because you're gonna die anyway. But I do believe that we should give him a little bit more credit than that. So, what can we get Gustav for Father's Day?
I think we're going to see a lot of new trade opening up between the duchies coming in here. So, getting him a supply of Dunkelfelger in wine or liquor, and more access to, since he's a food merchant, more access to the sea and things like that. Anything that could expand his flavor profiles at his restaurant, I think would be looked very favorably upon.
I agree. The next one is Deid.
I like that you have Deid on there, because he and Gunther are like polar opposites. They're both good fathers, but they're wildly different from each other.
Let's talk about Deid and his parenting.
So Deid is a very stoic, let's say, father. He doesn't give his children enough, I think, emotional support and care. He thinks he's doing it. He's trying to raise them to be grown men in this kind of harsh society, amongst peasant commoners, like the lowest of the low commoners, tradesmen. And he's trying to raise them to be viable in that realm. My really only big problem with him is letting the older brothers take food from the younger brother. Because, like, the stoicism I understand, given their society and the way he communicates. I can buy all that, and I can still see the value in it, even though, like, Lutz doesn't take it the right way, but the other brothers do. My only problem is denying your youngest child calories. His wife allows it too, initially. Other than that, I think, obviously he has a very different parenting style from a lot of these adults, but it's not an unviable one. And so I put him as a good father. He's not one of the best fathers, but I still think, a good dad, given what part of society he's in. He's one of the few fathers we see that is a tradesman, right? Deid is a carpenter, right? And his kids are going to be carpenters and tradesmen. And all the kids we see that he raises all make it to adulthood and are, for the most part, you know, in their society, fine, upstanding young men, you know. They might have some, you know, little personality issues, but if he didn't care, he would have let Lutz be adopted. He would have just been like, nope, my kid doesn't want to be with me. Well, then I don't have to take care of him anymore. Let him go be adopted into another family. But he turned around and he said to that other person, you're not a father. You don't know what it's like to be a father. You can't have my kid, you know?
I do have to say, though, that my very first time meeting Deid was in the anime, and that forever colored my perception of Deid, who was just very abusive. Like, in the anime, he was straight up punching Lutz for, like, I'm like, dude, what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah, I love the anime is amazing,
yes.
And it's what got me into this series, but it seems like rather jarring when you're first introduced to Lutz's home life and how weird it is, but the book does a lot better at explaining that. But you're right, definitely the first time I saw the anime, I was like, who's this jerk? Like, how dare you treat your kid that way? And of course he wants to run away to someone else. Like, you're terrible.
And, you know, Deid remained as he was. They don't say, like, oh, Deid changed his communication style. He embraced his son. He was more affirming to his son. No, Deid continued to be Deid. He did not change. It was as his children grew up, Lutz came to understand his father, was ultimately very grateful for his father and his mother, of course. What do we want to give Deid for Father's Day?
Give him new tools.
Brand new
and
tools.
a picture of Lutz with his new family.
Aww. Now we head into the good dad category. We have good dads in a harsh world. We have Deid. Now just straight up good dads for whatever reasons. Again, all of these things are colored by what we see from Rosamine's point of view and side stories. But for the most part, these are people that we have good impressions because they're generally competent people and they just happen also to be good fathers. So probably that's also why I put them here. But let's just talk about their parenting styles, parenting as a whole. Let's start with Karstedt.
I love Karstedt so much, but at the same time, like obviously all three of his sons end up to be fine gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get to be much of a father to Rosamine, because he got basically skipped over. Like, he wanted to adopt her when she was like 7. But she said, no, I refuse. Waited until she was, a year later when Sylvester adopted her, and then they just had him pose as her father. So he never really got the chance to be a father to Rosamine. But you can tell he would have relished that role if he had gotten to really do it. Unfortunately, it gets pointed out by Ferdinand much later in the story that he and Sylvester were negligent in getting her good medical care if he's not around. So that's definitely like a big blind spot for Karstedt, is what his responsibilities toward Rosamine should have been moving forward, because he wasn't ever really her father.
Karstedt was not just the father to Eckhard, Lamprecht, and Cornelius, and he was not just Rosamine's adopted father. He was also father to Nicholas. We're not going to talk about the whole wives situation here, because we already did in another video. But we do have to talk about Nicholas and the fact that he was sent to the temple. What do you make of that? Do you think that detracts from Karstedt's being considered a good dad?
No, and only because of how much the women in the household shape the household, right? And how much power they have over it. Which is, overall, the amount of agency it provides is great. But when it comes to these households that have more than one wife and how that politics is shaped by it, like Elvira probably would have taken Nicholas in, but she would have had to have the permission of his mother, which she definitely would not have gotten.
No.
And it would have put Lamprecht's wife and child in some kind of danger. But keep in mind, by entering the temple, that puts Nicholas in Rosamine's sphere of influence, where she and her retainers can help mold him into a promising young man outside of the influence of his mother. And so I don't think that was technically part of the calculus of the decision they made, but it ended up being for the best.
Yes.
And I don't think that makes him less of a father, because he has to keep in mind the safety of his entire household. And it's just one of those, it's kind of a harsh world kind of things.
Yes.
And doing the best he can with that. But overall, Nicholas, from what we can see, is shaping up. He has so much independent thought away from his mother, so there's definitely some influence on him that's not his mother, that's helping to mold him. I have to assume that's coming from either Karstedt or, someone else in the family, and his other 3 sons are fine men. And so what we can see of him as a father is, at least as a noble, he's doing a fine job.
Good, yeah. Yes, I also have great hopes for Nicholas. And despite the fact that he was put into the temple itself is no longer it's still pretty bad, but it's no longer the horrible smear of character that it used to be. So it was a better alternative than leave him to languish away and being neglected. Putting a kid in the temple is not just like abandoning him and that's it. No, you still have to make sure that they have attendance and the room is furnished and stuff like that. So he wasn't altogether abandoned. Karstedt already knew that Under Rosamund's leadership, the temple was a safe place for his son. And ultimately, it all worked for the good, like you said. So, Karstedt, what shall we give him for a gift?
We know he likes food. He's a big fan of Rosamund's food.
A trip to the Italian restaurant.
A trip to the Italian restaurant, or maybe a free recipe.
All right, let's go on to the next one, Lamprecht. We got a whole side story about Lamprecht returning home as a new father. He became a father during a very stressful time and a very difficult time in Ehrenfest during the Purge. And his wife could have been targeted during that time. And he had to be away while this was all happening, of course, because of his work.
He is a devoted husband and father. It sure seems like, and their relationship is really good. They both of the parents care for each other deeply. It just seems to be like a really good family dynamic all around. So he clearly looks like he's going to be an amazing father. He takes into his mindset that he wants to be different from Karstedt in the way that when he was a kid, Karstedt was not around all that much, because of the family politics. And like Karstedt's a better father now than he was. And so Lamprecht wants to be the model father right off the bat. And that's heartening to see.
So what should we get Lamprecht for Father's Day?
Like a best dad mug or something. I honestly can't think of anything.
Now, Giebe Kirnberger. What we remember about him as a father is chiefly from Alexis' point of view, who happens to be his son.
He used the opportunity with his son to train him further, right? Like, he treated his son not as his son, but as a retainer of the archducal family coming to get intel, and was being very harsh but fair about it, right? Here's how you're going to treat me in this interaction. And then once that's done, and you're actually seeking advice from your father, I'm going to tell you, you can't fail at this until you do this, right? Like, I'm going to give you direction, I'm going to teach you, I'm going to mold you, and I'm not going to let you fail yourself or those around you. He took an opportunity to interact with his son as an opportunity to train him further in how to be a proper retainer and proper knight.
Giebe Kirnberger, good job. Any gift for him?
Having Rosamund ask Bonifatius to spend a week there training with his knights.
Ooh, yes.
Or to give him his own spring ceremony.
Next on the list, we have Leberecht, Hartmut's father. So what can we say about him in regards to being a father to 3 scholar kids, especially Hartmut?
From what we can see, he's a typical noble father, is very caught off guard by Hartmut's radical devotion that he develops toward Rosamund.
We have to give him credit. It is because of his influence and his education that Hartmut is as gifted as scholar as he is, so props to him.
We don't have any indications that his other kids are, abnormal or doing bad things in society. And even though Hartmut is definitely abnormal, he's still a good noble, and his family's in good standing. Seems like everyone has a high amount of respect for their household.
When it comes to nobility, he did his job. Hartmut is not a deadbeat kid. He's doing his job. He's passionate about his job. He's getting married. Cool. So all in all 3 kids seem to have turned out okay. Good for you, Leberecht.
Yeah, you can't blame Leberecht for Hartmut being Hartmut.
What can we give him for Father's Day?
I think just because he likes plots, let's give him a decoder ring.
Ooh, yeah.
It's a fun one.
That's a fun one for sure. Let's see. We now go to Viktor. Viktor, if you guys will remember, is Brigitte's husband. And together they had a daughter called Lily Rose.
We don't see a lot of him. But what we do see of him is that he is concerned for Brigitte's health during the invasion, and that he doesn't want his daughter to be motherless. He definitely cares a little more about their family dynamics than he does her status.
And that is heartwarming to see.
And unfortunately, Viktor falls into this like category that we have for actually a lot of fathers we don't have on this list. Of where we know their fathers, but we don't really have. If anyone, we only have interactions with the wife because Rosemine knows the wife. Because basically, once you hit a certain age, almost everyone in this world is married, and producing kids is of high import. And so, almost, unfortunately, Victor's kind of in that same realm of we assume everyone that we meet is a good father because we have the interactions of them with their wives.
I have been thinking about a gift for him. I think like a framed picture of him and his family so he can prop up on his desk and encourage him to work hard.
That'd be nice.
Now, we do have Bierce. This is Heidi's father. Bierce has a lot on his hands. He runs a workshop, an ink workshop. When Wolf dies, he is saddled with being the head of the Ink Guild, on top of running his own workshop, and on top of being a father. He hoists off the job of keeping Heidi out of trouble and, of course, passing on the legacy of family workshop to Joseph, who ends up marrying Heidi and will become the head of the workshop there. When Bierce and Heidi both go to talk to Benno, he has to control Heidi. Heidi is another mind, just grown up, and she's all about the ink.
So he has a hard task, right? Heidi is difficult to manage, but he tries his best. And the first time Heidi goes to talk to Rosemine, he's like, "Be nicer to her. She's rich," trying to teach her not to be rude. And he is very realistic about their future. He understands the strengths of his daughter, and one of them is not running a workshop. But we know he communicates that to his daughter because she is on the same page. While it might be seen as kind of a betrayal that he wants to hand off the workshop to his son-in-law rather than his daughter, she's definitely on the same page, and they've communicated that. So in that realm, we don't have a ton of interactions with him as a father outside those two circumstances, but what we can see is he was probably a fine father.
What should we get him for a gift?
Enough money to have a really nice retirement, because we know that's coming.
That is coming. Now, Otto. Otto.
A doting, if somewhat annoying father.
Absolutely gushing on about his child. We say that he is a good dad because we do see Renate, not just when she's a baby, but later on in further stories, we see how she gets along. And whether it's through Benno's influence, Karina's influence, or whether he just let them do a lot of parenting, whatever the case, the girl looks to be on track for a solid career as a merchant. Otto should be proud too.
Absolutely. Renate is strong, charismatic, independent little child. She knows what she's on about. She tries to hire Camille. "You're going to come work for me." Otto has definitely doted on her, but also reinforced her education to the point where she knows what she wants to do, how she wants to be, what she wants to make of herself in the world. And also constantly changes his own life goals in order to assist his family.
There's plenty of options to gift Otto, make him a happier fellow.
Yeah, anything family related.
Family related.
A picture of his daughter. Or if they haven't done it already, he needs a plank in his house to make a growth chart out of for all of his kids.
Aww, that's so cute. We love him. He's one of our favorites. However, our pick of favorite dad is Gunther. Gunther. I think we can all agree. You line up all the fathers, even noble fathers, he is still best dad.
A lovable bear of a man, right? He loves his family. He goes out of his way to be that rock that not only his kids, but any kid, to make their life easier. He talks to the guards at the gates to let the orphan kids go out to the fields. He helps train them, and he is an amazing father to his 3 kids. Would sacrifice his life at any moment if need be for them.
We see him in action and do that very thing when he and Aoife went to the temple to talk about Mine's future. They already had an idea of what could go wrong and fought for her, impressing, Ferdinand. It was absolutely reckless what he did. Their level of care and love he has for his family is just unheard of in this world, both for the nobles and for the commoners as well. He and Aoife had several babies. Many of them were lost or miscarried, so he dotes upon the 3 that survived. And to the point that, when mine was born, she had the devouring, she was sickly and ill. They did not give up on her. They did not let her starve. They could have just let her die because she was not going to make it in the world. But no, he and Aoife both cared for her as much as they could to the very, very end.
It's a scene from the books, also in the anime, but the way it got me when Mine was talking to her family about that she only had like a year left, and the whole family cried themselves to sleep in bed, but yet he was out there by the fire crying by himself.
Oh,
that he was going to lose another kid. That got me so bad. Like I was watching it with my little brother, just bawling, watching the anime. The amount of love he has for his family, and to know that one of the things he loves more than anything else in the world is going to be, taken from them. And then when the funeral happens, and he's burying a box of her possessions, and telling the commoners around him that his daughter was killed by a noble and her body taken, and he has nothing to bury but this box. Like, even though we knew she was okay, and he knew she was okay physically, it's still, the sense of loss that came from that was immense.
Gunther definitely is best dad in the series, and especially important because this one of the central themes is family. So Kazuki Sensei really had to establish a parental figure. The ideal father in this case was Gunther, who, despite his limitations, despite being a commoner, not having money, living in the poorest section of even the commoner's district, yet he outshines every single parent on this list.
Gunther is seen as an abnormality, right? Most people don't love their kids that much, don't put so much time and effort into raising their kids, especially one like mine who, they thought could die at any moment, right? And we know that they're the 3 out of 7 kids who lived.
Yeah. Dang.
And so Aoife and Gunther have lost already 4 children. Pretty much any neighbor perspective we see, Gunther is the abnormality, right?
Yeah. What should we get Gunther for Father's Day?
He would take literally anything given to him by his kids. Be it Rosemine gifting him a book, or Thule making him something to go, like a key, something on his uniform, or Camille gifting him like a hand-carved duck or something. He would take literally anything that was made by his kids.
It's not about pricey things. I think the only thing he really ever thought about was his wine. Maybe we can get him
yeah,
something.
He does like his alcohol.
Yeah, let's get him Dunkelfelger's finest. Let's get him some of that. But I think he would definitely appreciate something that his children give him. And now that Rosamine is a noble, I think maybe if they could have a very, very private get-together, like a lunch or something for Father's Day, I think that would also be appreciated. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, if they could sneak her family into the Italian restaurant with just Rosemine and them, that would be amazing.
Yes, that would be amazing. Benno, make it happen. And speaking of Benno, we're going to finish out with father figures. And today we want to give special mention to Benno.
So Benno had a love that passed away young. And so he doesn't see any other woman as fit to be his wife now that she's gone. But at a young age, his parents passed. And so he raised Karina, his youngest sister. He has an older sister too, but his youngest sister, Karina, he helped raise. And so that kind of set his tone for how he treats those under his stewardship. And so when mine came along, he saw this peasant girl who was entering his world and needed a guiding hand. And so he took her under his stewardship and tried to mold her into a good merchant, but not a trusting merchant. He did occasionally take advantage of her or do things that were not within her best interest so that she would learn a lesson from it. But all in all, in order to give her a better station in life, and then also plotted when those stations in life changed to absorb some of the negative aspects of that in order to keep an avenue open for communication and mentorship as well.
We see the progression. He goes from being a straight just business to like being a proper friend, proper mentor who genuinely cared for the well-being of mine, and not just mine but also Lutz. Seeing the lower city little punks that he discovered grow up to become absolutely marvelous merchants. And the thing that I think he would be so delighted and also horrified, but just a huge tribute to him, is the entire chapter of Merchant Saint. That really does tell us like how far mine has gone, and it all started because she was taken under the wing of Benno, who taught her everything she knows about being a merchant and defending herself out there in this world that only tries to take advantage of people who have things. So he gave her the tools she needed, and we really, really appreciate him for that.
Because he's never been a father himself, he's a little bit awkward of a father figure, because he doesn't think everything through, the like relationships quite through enough. But he does look out for the best interest of his charges, and he puts them in the best situation he can think of for them to take their own action. So, yeah, he definitely is a great mentor in that respect.
And of course, I didn't list him there, but also Mark, he had some like shining moments where he was genuinely concerned for the kids. He would walk them home and stuff like that. As Benno's right-hand man, he's an extension of him. What should we get him for Father's Day?
Some more exclusivity contracts.
I think if he could just have exclusivity contracts for something that the Guildmaster wants, that would make his day.
Oh, yeah. Just some little way to stick it to the Guildmaster.
Now, to finish out this video, let's talk about Ferdinand. Ferdinand stands out as a mentor figure. The mentor figure who is not only effective in training others, but is also deeply responsible and committed to their success. Unlike those figures who would seek power for themselves, Ferdinand plays a behind-the-scenes role similar to that of a minister or maybe a kingmaker, training individuals like Letizia and Rosamine for their future roles of responsibility.
He's incredibly fair with his harshness. Like, he treats everyone with that same degree of candor, but even in that harshness, he does care. So, like, we'll harken back to when mine was a apprentice shrine maiden, and he put her in the repentance chamber as she got sick. He held on to that for several volumes. That he felt bad about putting her in that situation where she could get sick. The man tries. He's just real awkward and doesn't understand kids at all.
Whatever harsh or difficult assignment he gives, it's something that you can accomplish. Everybody who trains under Ferdinand turns out to be extremely excellent, extremely competent. For example, let's remember Feline. Growing up, she did not have the same advantages as, say, med noble kids or even arch noble kids who had the best tutors. And yet, during her time as Rosamine's scholars, she was able to go into the temple and train, not just under Hartmut, but also, most especially and most terrifying for her, under Ferdinand. She became a very competent scholar to the point that Feline was doing these things and able to perform her duties so excellently because of the training she had received in just a matter of a few months.
I think with the sole exception of Wilfred. Like, when you look at like the way Daniel talks about him when you first meet Daniel, And the way Fran talks about Ferdinand is he will give you tons and tons and tons of work, and he won't give up on you until you give up on yourself. The only time this sort of breaks is with Wilfrid, is that he thought Wilfrid was so, and he was obviously so catered to and spoiled that he didn't even want to attempt that work plan. It was Rosemine who was like, no, let's give him these tasks, and then if he can't accomplish them, then you can say he's worthless.
Like the fact that Wilfrid was Veronica's baby, that also might have played into his absolute view of his prospects. He was like,
oh, most definitely, yeah. I mean, because he took offense to the fact that someone because he was raised by Veronica too, right? Is that someone raised by Veronica wasn't treated the same way he was? Because like Veronica stated that if you weren't always bringing benefit to the duchy, you're worthless and you should die.
Yeah.
And so that's how she treated Ferdinand. So that's why he became competent, because he had to become competent, or else, I mean, she was trying to kill him the whole time anyway. But like, he was constantly getting this message ingrained to him: if you're not beneficial, you're worthless. And then he sees this other boy raised by Veronica who was just absolutely worthless in his eyes. And so he's like, so I don't understand how someone raised by Veronica couldn't do the bare minimum of, being a noble. And so he was just supremely offended by Wilfrid's entire countenance, I think.
As he should. We're all offended by Wilfrid.
Poor Wilfrid. It's all Oswald's fault. All Oswald's fault.
By the way, should we even talk about Oswald?
No, screw that guy.
Okay, thank you. I don't want the video to get longer, but I needed to ask. For those of you who want to bring it up in the comments, you talk about Oswald by yourselves. What should we give Ferdinand for a gift?
Well, obviously we know he likes music from our world, so some more sheet music I'm sure he would love.
And if we want to add a side of consomme with that, there would be also...
Yeah. Oh, get him some quesadilla.
Oh, yes! With lots of consomme. Oh, yeah. Excellent choice. As we wrap up our look at Ascendance of a Bookworm father figures, it is clear that the story is full of diverse paternal figures, each adding something unique to the story. The best fathers and mentors in the series stand out with their unwavering support, wisdom, and genuine care. They act as pillars of strength. On the flip side, the worst are defined by their neglect, selfishness, and abusive behavior. The actions of each character that we covered today affected the lives of not just their children and their families, but also proved to have repercussions for decades to come. By looking at these characters, we see just how much fatherhood and mentorship can impact lives, for better or worse. Celebrating the great ones and acknowledging the flawed ones reminds us what truly makes a good father figure. Ascendance of a Bookworm beautifully explores these themes, and as it highlights the value of familiar bonds throughout the story, we can reflect on the qualities that shape and influence the people that we care about. Just want to say thank you, Nick, for joining me on these long recordings. I had lots of fun. Seriously, time just flew by. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
And also want to thank you for being a supporter of this channel. As a Zen tier member, you are entitled to co-hosting with me, and your contributions, your monthly contributions help so that I can have a little bit of extra time each month so I can work on Bookworm and put out more content. So really from the bottom of my heart, Nick, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mag.
Do you have anything you want to plug or any shout outs you would like to give out to the world?
Nope. Get on this Discord, get into the Ko-fi, join the community, and if any of you guys out there are good at making content, make more content. We need more. So do it.
Do it. Do it. All right, everybody, this is the end of our recording, and I hope that you celebrate Father's Day with your loved ones and be the biological, adopted mentors Be sure to appreciate them. And thank you again, Nick. Just want to wish you a happy Father's Day. And may you enjoy spending time with your daughter and your family in this holiday.
Thank you.
Until the next time, bye-bye.